July 2nd, 1951. The English Channel stretched beneath a pale, misty dawn, its grey waters blending into the fog-heavy sky. The HMS Vanguard cut a silent, relentless path through the waves, its steel frame vibrating subtly with the roar of engines and the disciplined movement of sailors on deck. The massive carrier hummed like a living organism, a microcosm of war, its deck alive with activity yet weighed down by the ghosts of past accidents. For months, every landing had been a gamble with death. 43 aircraft had been destroyed. 17 pilots had died. Each approach carried a pulse-pounding confrontation with physics, machinery, and human error. On the bridge, Captain Edward Hartley studied the grim reports before him. Lines of data recorded crashes, near misses, and equipment failures, each one a painful reminder of human limitations and the unyielding nature of the carrier deck. Despite having the world's best-trained pilots, advanced aircraft, and meticulous procedures, the losses continued unabated. Hartley's mind, honed over decades of naval service, could not escape the question gnawing at him: how could such a well-equipped and disciplined force still falter so frequently during what should have been routine landings? Into this tense, suffocating atmosphere arrived Oberleutnant Klaus Reinhardt, a German fighter pilot assigned to the carrier as part of NATO's exchange program. Reinhardt's calm demeanour belied a mind constantly analysing every motion, every pattern, every failure he had observed. He had watched countless pilots approach the straight deck with precision, only to falter in the final seconds. Misjudged distances, incorrect descent angles, overcompensation in panic, collisions with steel barriers and parked aircraft. The deck was unforgiving, and it had claimed too many lives. Only 300 feet separated the final arresting wire from potential disaster. Beyond lay steel barricades, fuel-laden aircraft, and an indifferent sea waiting to swallow mistakes. Reinhardt did not see human error as the culprit. He saw a system designed to fail under pressure. The straight-deck doctrine, decades old and unquestioned, assumed perfect alignment and instant reaction. But no pilot could achieve superhuman consistency under such stress. Every failed approach, every throttle overcorrection, had caused preventable destruction. Reinhardt began a meticulous mental experiment, analysing vectors, wind, speed, ship motion, and pilot reaction. A revelation emerged. If the approach path was slightly angled to port, a pilot could naturally align with the arresting wires, maintain control, and in the worst case, escape into open water. The idea was audacious, revolutionary, almost unthinkable. When Reinhardt first presented it to the carrier's chief engineer and senior officers, their reaction was disbelief. "You want to angle the landing deck?" one scoffed. "That will create uncontrollable yaw, lateral instability, guaranteed disaster." Reinhardt, however, had already done the math. He accounted for wind currents, the ship's forward speed, pilot reaction time, and every variable that could influence landing. His calculations were precise, cold, and unyielding. The only unknown was human perception. Could pilots trust a method so radically different from the doctrine they had drilled for years? The first test flight was an exercise in tension and artistry. Reinhardt roared over the carrier in his jet, engines screaming, wings slicing the fog as sailors froze mid-motion. Every heartbeat stretched into an eternity. As the aircraft descended along the newly plotted diagonal path, the arresting wire appeared impossibly small. Reinhardt's wheels touched down perfectly. The wire engaged. The jet rolled safely to a stop, inches from parked aircraft that had claimed lives in previous months. A muted cheer swept across the deck, a mixture of shock, relief, and awe. But Reinhardt's mission was far from complete. Over the following weeks, he trained fellow pilots on every nuance of the angled approach, judging descent rates, throttle adjustments, reading subtle wind currents bouncing off the island's superstructure. Every landing was observed, recorded, and analysed. Pilots who had approached the deck with terror now approached with steady hands and calm hearts. Confidence returned where fear had reigned. Carrier landing accidents plummeted. Within months, HMS Vanguard and sister ships documented an 80% reduction in landing-related crashes, a staggering achievement verified in official logs. The method, deceptively simple in theory, demanded absolute precision in execution. Every pilot had to maintain exact alignment, airspeed and attitude while compensating for ship movement, wave patterns and wind gusts. A minor lapse could be catastrophic. Reinhardt's angled approach required both skill and faith in the method, in the calculations, and in oneself. Each successful landing became a triumph of human ingenuity over mortality, a ballet of mathematics, aerodynamics, and courage. The psychological impact was profound. Pilots who had once faced the deck with sheer terror now trusted the angled line. Anxiety that had once gripped even the most seasoned aviators melted into quiet confidence. Training stresses decreased as the dread of sudden catastrophe, the steel barricade, the parked aircraft, the unforgiving sea became a distant memory rather than a constant shadow. Morale improved across the carrier. Sailors moved with a steadier gait, their eyes no longer flinching at every jet touchdown, and the rhythm of carrier life, once punctuated by tragedy, now hummed with cautious optimism. Reinhardt, however, never sought fame. He meticulously documented his work, recording the precise calculations, wind vectors and pilot feedback, ensuring that every nuance could be replicated by future generations. He standardized procedures, held hands on briefings, and returned to his squadron, leaving the HMS Vanguard deck transformed forever. Yet the crew's stories endured. Sailors and aviators would later recount the first angled landing in hushed reverence, a German fighter slicing through the fog, engines screaming, wings catching the pale morning light, touching down with flawless precision. That single moment became legend, a living proof that one man's insight, combined with courage and intellect, could save countless lives. Beyond the HMS Vanguard, Reinhardt's innovation reverberated across oceans. NATO carriers, followed by fleets worldwide, adopted the angled landing technique. Fatalities and aircraft loss dropped dramatically, transforming the very calculus of naval aviation risk. Pilots who had once approached the deck with the weight of impending doom now carried themselves with measured confidence. Each landing, executed along the diagonal path, became a quiet tribute to Reinhardt's audacity, an enduring reminder that life could be preserved through ingenuity and courage. Years later, naval historians and aviators alike look back on Reinhardt's work as a pivotal turning point. His story, a single German fighter pilot challenging decades of doctrine, calculating the impossible and executing it under punishing conditions, stood as a testament not only to technical brilliance, but to human perseverance. Every angled landing, every safe touchdown echoed Reinhardt's daring insight. The perfect fusion of intellect, skill and bravery, reshaping carrier aviation for generations to come. Even decades later, the legacy endures. Pilots and engineers continue to speak of Reinhardt's approach as the definitive masterclass in innovation under pressure. Flight manuals still cite his methods. Simulators reproduce his landing angles. Instructors tell the story of a fog-sliced deck and a lone fighter executing what was once unimaginable. The angled landing path is no longer an experiment. It is a global standard. Every pilot who touches down along that line, whether in the North Atlantic, the Pacific or distant seas, owes a silent debt to a German fighter pilot who defied convention, challenged the accepted rules, and transformed naval aviation forever. And somewhere, in quiet moments on decks lit by dawn or sunset, veterans of the carrier service still recall that first impossible landing, the roar of engines, the tense silence, the perfect touchdown, and understand that Reinhardt did more than innovate. He gave them something far greater than a technique. He gave them the priceless gift of survival, courage, and the knowledge that even in the most unforgiving circumstances, human ingenuity could triumph over death itself.